Over the past 20 years, I've cut over $10 million worth of broadcast TV commercials. And if I had to start my career over today, I'd ignore almost everything I was originally taught and focus on the 6 things that kept my schedule filled with high-paying clients who treated me as a creative partner. In this video, I'll show you exactly what those 6 things are so you can become an in-demand editor who gets booked at the rate you deserve years faster than I did. Thing 1, do you ever feel like no matter how many videos you edit, they just don't stand out or lead to higher paying projects? That's where I was for 4 long years when I started. And during that time, I experimented with every technique, every piece of software, every plugin, and every workflow, and none of it made my flat edits any better. I thought it was because I lacked talent, and it even made me question if I should keep going with editing as a career. So I was at a rock bottom, and it made me finally reach out to a pro editor and ask them for help. And he looked at what I'd been doing, and he didn't mince words. He told me I was treating editing like a technical skill, but the best editors who command the highest rates and secure the best clients who trust them creatively are emotional storytellers. Now, before I touch my timeline, I map out the story and I decide on a target emotion for every beat of the story. And if you think this is advice for beginners, you couldn't be more wrong. This is still the single most important thing I do for every edit 20 years into this. Just like my student David, he'd also been cutting for 20 years, even for top ad agencies and brands.
The story and emotion map definitely was a revelation. Everything is just like with that emotional target in mind, because then it's like you have your North Star.
So thing 1 is to map the story. And if you want to know more about how I use emotion in my edits, click the link in the description and download my free editing guide. But mapping the emotion is only half the job. There's another step to make sure those target emotions come out that most editors ignore. Thing 2, do you ever finish an edit that is totally buttoned up from a technical perspective, but it still doesn't get any attention or move people emotionally? I've been there. Even when I started mapping emotion before diving into my edits, they still came out flat at first. Here's the thing. Planning the emotion is key, but you still have to know how to evoke those emotions in your audience. And that's where the craft of editing comes into play. I bring out emotion with story, rhythm, sound, and action. Story is simply what happens and when it happens. Rhythm is the speed and visual patterns of your cuts. Sound is the world you build through ambience, dialogue editing, unique sound effects, and music. And action is simply where you cut in and out of each shot. So map the emotion, but then ask yourself which of these techniques has the best chance of evoking that emotional target in the audience. Take my student Guzman. Once he stopped chasing the technical side of editing and learned to use editing techniques to evoke a target emotion, his edits began to stand out and he booked his first 5-figure client.
So after the program, I was able not only to work on the foundational skills of editing, I was able to book my first 5-figure project.
So thing 2 is to cut for emotion. But even if you know exactly how to evoke emotion in your audience, there's another mistake that every editor makes that sets them back years in their careers. I know because I made it too. Thing 3, do you ever feel like your editing skills are improving a ton, but they're being wasted on low budget footage? That's where I was after I had these big breakthroughs on editing for emotion, because most of the editing work I was getting were corporate videos. So I didn't have access to high production value stories to show off my new editing skills. That's one of the biggest catch-22s I see in this industry. Our show reels show the work we've done, not the type of work we want to do. So 20 years ago, when I was figuring this out, I basically just started contacting every filmmaker I could find who was making the high production value stories that I wanted to work on. And eventually I did break through and was able to use my new emotional storytelling skills on projects worthy of them, just like my student Jacob did.
Doing the commercial spec ads were probably my favorite part. You know, the course really stresses on the idea of like emotional storytelling, but I hadn't had the chance to do emotional storytelling basically my whole career. So I was really looking forward to doing that and working with high quality footage.
And his new reel landed him a dream gig.
Within 5 months, making $2,000 a week doing projects that I actually love.
So thing 3 is to build your reel. Building a reel like Jacob's from premium projects is exactly what we do together inside my program. So if you want a show reel that lands the work you actually want, click the link in the description to learn more. Thing 4, do you ever put in the hours on some great footage, spend the time to get the emotions right, but for some reason you're still not breaking through? Well, imagine a songwriter who records a killer song with great lyrics, but she records it on her internal laptop mic. If it's an emotionally moving song, it will probably still get some traction despite the poor quality, but you really need both the emotional and the technical for your work to take off. And in the world of social media, there really are no technical standards anymore, so there's a lack of knowledge on how to bring an edit up to the quality we've come to expect from TV shows or feature films we see in theaters. After you make strides in your emotional storytelling and apply them to projects that are worthy of your new skills, it's time to add that technical polish that brings up your work to broadcast standards. I'm talking about color correction, sound mixing, and even export settings that give your work that broadcast polish. And when you combine that with your new emotional storytelling, you will easily be able to command higher rates like my student Raj did.
Just today, I was on a call with one of my social media clients, and I charged them 25 to 30% more than what I typically used to charge them, and they happily agreed to that price.
So thing 4 is to polish your reel. But even if you go in the correct order, there's another mistake that editors make that keeps them stuck editing low-paying projects with quick turnarounds instead of the creatively inspiring higher budget projects. Thing 5, do you ever feel like your editing has finally caught up to where you want it, but you're still being overlooked and not hearing back from the best clients? Well, imagine you're at a restaurant that you've never been to. You don't know it yet, but there's a Michelin star chef in the kitchen and the food is incredible. But the waiter comes out and hands you a cardboard menu with stains on it that's falling apart. There are images of food on it, but it's taken in bad lighting on an old phone. So are you going to take a chance and order, or are you going to go somewhere else? Well, I've met so many editors that are like that Michelin star chef. Like my student Imran, he had great editing skills. He just needed help presenting his work in the right way. And when he did, the results were incredible.
I got from 0 client and 0 editing gigs to a full-time job offer from a very well-known company with about 84,000 yearly. But the portfolio is literally, I think, changed. That's the reason why I was offered the job.
And the good news is it doesn't have to be overly complicated. It could be a single page web portfolio, a short show reel of clips of your very best work, a nice professional headshot, and a professional email address for clients to contact you in one click. So number 5 is position your portfolio. But this still may not be what's holding you back. You might not even have people showing up at your restaurant yet. I've been there too. Thing 6, you know the old saying, if a tree falls in the forest and nobody is there to hear it, does it make a sound? Well, let me ask you this. If your editing showreel plays and nobody's watching, will you get a job? Having a great showreel is really only half the battle. Getting it in front of people, the right people, is the next most important step. I've had the pleasure to meet and talk to hundreds of editors, and most of us have 2 things in common. 1, we're introverts. That's why we don't mind spending long hours in the dark by ourselves. And 2, the idea of selling ourselves makes our skin crawl. So if you're stuck editing low-paying work with clients who treat you like a set of hands instead of a creative partner, this may be your sticking point. So here's what I want you to do. For the next 30 days, try this. Reach out to just 2 people a day, but with these 3 important caveats. 1, they have to be people that need the exact type of editing work you're best at and that you've already gotten clients big results with. 2, you need to send them a personal email and share a showreel that shows the exact type of work they need. 3, make sure your portfolio is positioned in a pleasing way like I talked about in the last section. My student Rob followed this plan and had incredible results.
Only a couple of months after the course, years, I booked my first like really big client. It was a client for the amount of 12,000 euro that we agreed on. For me, it was like the confirmation, okay, this will work.
So booking a 12,000 euro client didn't happen because he got lucky or suddenly grew a salesy personality. It happened because he had a clear, simple process for putting the right work in front of the right people. That's number 6. Pitch premium projects. And that's the whole list, 6 things. And the 6 things aren't even the most important part. It's the hundreds of things that I didn't include on this list that are distracting you from having a sustainable editing career you love, where you're being paid a great wage and editing projects you love with people who respect you. Now, you can absolutely go and do these 6 things on your own and have great success. But if you want to fast track it, I built an 8-week editing program where I personally guide you through these 6 steps, and my students are getting great results like David, Rob, Guzman, Imran, and Jacob did. So click the link in the description to learn more. Now you know the only 6 things I'd do if I was starting my editing career from scratch, but knowing them won't do you much good if your raw editing instincts aren't sharp enough to pull them off. So watch this video next to learn a boring editing exercise that will save you 5 years of struggle so you can build an editing career you love years faster than I did. Happy editing.